Well, the sign on the left side of my screen says that we're recording. So I do this.
That's correct.
I say, greetings world and greetings Seven Spot. Today we've got a treat for you because we are speaking to Charles Howard in South Africa, Cape Town. And I was just commenting, Charles, that the weather is so much nicer where you are, and the time is a little bit later. It's now 8 a.m. where I am in sunny British Columbia in South Surrey, and it's -5 degrees. What's the weather like in Cape Town right now?
Yeah, it's nice, 23 degrees Celsius and nice sunny, warm day.
Lovely.
We've had a very good summer. Lots of heat, quite a bit of wind, but generally good weather.
Yeah, well, that's fabulous.
And I just want to say, hello to everybody that's listening to this.
Yeah, well, I've chatted with I've done a number of interviews in South Africa, and everybody says that the winter driving is the perfect time, so that's great.
Yeah, you know what they say sometimes in South Africa is that you've got to own a convertible car once today, must never buy another one because the sun burns you to pieces.
That's right. Well, I think that that's one of the things that you mentioned in the video or in the material you sent me. So without delving into the weather particulars between South Africa and Vancouver, I know that you sent me a lot of documentation and photos, and I thank you so much for that. Yeah. But I'm here to talk about the history of Marauder, and because you sent me some information, and I put it into a slideshow, and I'm wondering if you would you'd just care to comment on it.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead.
Okay, so here we are with the Marauder Sports Cars with Charles Howard, and I'm wondering, can you tell us about what we're looking at here?
Yeah. So the designer and the sort of the father of the Marauders who did all the work was a guy called Peter Meffen.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at his history, he started and he built little small cars. He grew up on, going to racetracks quite often with his father, and I was obviously very keen. And then he built a very small little car with I think it was an Austin engine or something called it had a special name. It'll come to me now. But in the interim, the first time I got to know him was I was only 16 years old at that time. This is 1970.
Yeah.
There was an oval track racing, big oval track racing track in Johannesburg called Wembley Stadium.
Yes.
And there were different types of motor racing. There was what they called the sprint, the super modifieds with the V8s, the big ones, the sprint cars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they also had a Formula 2 category, which was, the Volvos and typically the Ford engines at that stage. Mm-hmm. And they were all sort of very similar to the sprint cars. And then, of course, what happened is Peter Meffen went and designed this car. And if you can have a look, it's quite unique in terms of the engineering we went into it, that the engine was offset to the left side. It was always, again, it was always an anti-clock racetrack. Yeah. So, of course, the engine was biased, and you can see the position of the engine. Also, for the center of gravity, was perfect. And he used a lot of Triumph upright parts, and I think the tires he got from one of the ex-Formula 1 cars, which he used to help Tyrrell at the time when they used to come out to race in South Africa. He used to be an assistant to Ken Tyrrell as well.
Wow.
And so obviously he built this car, but this little car was so rapid around the track that, he just ran away from me because of the superior handling, and this thing it just stuck like glue to the track. And we were always watching this guy in awe, racing this car around the track. And actually, it was so fast that at that stage, a guy called Buddy Fuller, he was like
he was a bike racer, and he was an official.
That's right, yeah. And he was like the owner of this whole hot rod setup. And of course, he couldn't have this. At one stage, I actually banned this car from the track because it was too fast. but this happened to be the predecessor to the Marauder.
Yeah.
And then in 1973, I think he decided that, at that stage, the Lotus 7 wasn't available in South Africa. I know there's one or two. There's one guy that I knew, the son of Henry Long, who was also a speedway rider, who had a Lotus 7, an old Lotus 7, a very original one. But the germination for this one was that Peter wanted to build something similar to a Lotus 7.
Yeah.
It had a few more advantages in terms that it had a bit of a boot. And, of course, it was very much South African.
Yeah.
And of course, he set this up, and he built these cars, and it started off, and that formed a company called Matador Motors. So you see on a lot of the Marauders, you see there's a Matador sticker on the car itself.
Right.
And so they started in 1973, and I think there were about 136, if I'm correct, that were built.
Uh-huh.
And of course, these, the car actually went through iterations, some iterations, from the Mark 1 right through to the thing. So in the photo there, that's the very first car that they built.
And it was
And
aluminum.
as you can see,
it was aluminium.
That's right, all aluminum, yeah, with of course the Ford engine in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is the Forerunner. As you can see, the suspension at that stage, a lot of the early Marauder suspensions also were they had like a binding system with rubber bushes.
Yes.
Similar to shock absorbers on the wishbones.
Yep.
And this created the friction, like a friction binding system for the suspension. Mm-hmm. And then you had obviously coil spring over shocks for the front. Mm-hmm. And at the back, coil over spring. And they were normally, it was a solid axle at the back with obviously the tramp rods and the panhard rod.
Right.
And so this is what started. And he built these few, and they are, I think Tiens has still got one. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a nice example which comes up in one of the next photos in terms that was just recently sold for a lot of money in country. This has been restored.
Yeah.
And as you can see, that's a very good example of the Mark 1. All aluminum, and as you can see, very, very basic, very square, boxy type shape.
Mm-hmm. But we were chatting before we started this stream quickly and about your car. And you had mentioned that it, has Cortina running gear. Was that the donor basically for all
basically all of these were Escort or Cortina donors with the Escort rack and pinion, or the with the gearbox, and then of course the diff. But as I said, he left the selection of engines open to the people. So whatever they wanted to fit, he would then build specifically to adapt it. So you'll find there's an array of BMWs, and I know Revel, his son, has got one with the BMW.
Yep.
And then John's busy racing one with the BMW, the older 2002 TSI, or the old side draft 2002 cars, engines. So a lot of them still got that. And then there's a rotary. Mm-hmm. And more recently, a lot of the guys have been fitting Toyota or the Nissan, the DR, the turbocharged DS18 or DT18, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but then, of course, what you probably find is the differentials are still very much Ford-based.
Yeah.
And front, with the gearbox as well, either being a Toyota or, in case, it depends which engine it is. Mm-hmm. But the Ford Type 9 gearbox, the 5-speed box, is still very popular. Although the spares and that are very expensive for them now these days. So this is a little quick photo of mine, and this is the Mark 1. It was actually number 37, if the chassis number reflects what it is that was built. Mm-hmm. And
so you see this one is your car then?
This is mine, yeah. This is my one, which has got the Ford running gear, all Ford, and Cortina GT. At that stage, they had the Cortina GT bullet box with, of course, the crossflow. You can see the hump on the bonnet. Was actually for the pre-crossflow engine, which had Del Orte side drafts on it.
Well, that's what you mentioned. These cars always have more value when they're original, and yours is or was, shall we say, original with pre-crossflow engine.
Yeah. Yes, apart from the engine change, everything else is original, but I still have all the original parts. So if I had to take it back to the 1973, because this was actually a 73 model as well. I bought it in 1982.
Now this one, go ahead.
So this one is now a further development. What you'll see, the later Mark IIs came out with these wings on the bonnet. Which was actually, I think the early ones didn't have the wings, and then later it's developed to have the wings on the bonnet. And this was actually my younger brother's car.
Right.
And that sold to somebody else, but this had also Ford running gear, but it had the Pinto 2-liter motor in, so you can see the bulge in the to accommodate the Pinto motor.
Yeah,
and also it's very similar. The bush suspension, no rose joints. Some of the models and some of the guys are now converted these to rose joint suspension.
Yes,
which is a later innovation, but these still had the original, very much original suspension.
When
You see
did they
the coil.
when did they convert over from the aluminium exterior to the fiberglass?
I think it was very soon after he started we realized that the aluminium was just a very difficult, complex thing to build. There were very few specialists. It's the old
Yeah.
Smith wheel and these sort of things.
Mhm.
And I think they found it was much easier to do the fiberglass body.
Yeah.
And you got a guy who was doing boat building to help him to do the body. So that was very good. And I think it's a much simpler way of doing it, and that's why he went in that direction.
Yeah.
Much neater.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So if it's a 73 model, then what happened. Then came the Mark IIIs, which has got the little frog eye, like the old Austin Healey frog eye, the lights.
Yeah.
And you'll see the bonnet is actually, it's where the Mark I and the Mark II we had flip-top bonnets. You just flip it to the front.
Yes.
This is at a separate bonnet.
Yeah.
And then at the back of the boot, you'll see the fuel tank. The filler cap is actually on the top at the right back there.
Okay.
Right back of the car.
Yeah.
Whereas on the earlier models, the filler cap was actually right in the back of the car.
Yes, I noticed that. Yeah.
And then you can see, like, this is one that's probably good. This is at a Toyota, the 4-way GE motor in this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that we were talking about that. I know that a lot of guys in South Africa, generally speaking, have Toyota engines in their sevens. So yeah.
Yeah, everybody's running, with the throttle bodies, with the engine management system. It's the way to go. I think the Weber side drafts are very difficult to tune, and there's very few people that can tune them properly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lost art.
Yeah. And then this was a one-off that was built by a guy, and actually it was, as you can see, he actually put the body extended the roof, and we call this the Mark IV.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very different. This had a Fiat 124S engine in it.
Oh, did
Fiat
it?
drivetrain.
Yeah.
Which is very different. A very nice car, actually. And this guy had this car forever. Went to many shows. Fiat Bertha engine. And then what happened is actually Tiens.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually bought this car as well. So
interesting that has the Fiat engine. I know a lot of guys in South America, in Argentina, have Fiat engines in their sevens.
Yeah, so this one ran well too, because those Fiats could haul. They weren't slow cars in those days as well. So.
Yeah, I love them.
And very nice built. It was a well done car this as well. And so Terence in our group, he's the one he's actually got a Mark I.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the Mark II. He's got a Mark III. He's got an X racing car. He's got a whole collection of them. So it'd be an interesting guy to get to chat.
Well, we'll keep on it
because him and Jan, they'd be good people to get on.
Yeah,
and you can see a bit of a side view of this car. It actually was very impressive, and
it does. It looks great with the target top. I think it looks fabulous.
Yeah, and in that stage, so there was no Lotus 7, and these are the cars. There were a lot of them running around, and that's what piqued my interest when I was still a youngster. You go and look, I say, I should one day actually want to have. When you sit in your class doing drawings, these are the sort of cars that we're drawing, the sort of shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. You and I were talking about GSM darts and flamingos. Yeah. I can see a kind of a carryover of that theme looking at the rear end of this.
Yeah, they've also got a very, very, very long history, in terms of a well-documented history, the darts and the flamingos.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
But this was. And this is a one-off. There's only one of these cars, and as I say, this is at Jan's now. Tiens has got this one now at the moment.
Wow, what a gorgeous car.
Yeah.
Now
this is just some of the paraphernalia. So you can see this is an early '73 thing, the sports car, and you can see from 900 rand.
Yeah.
Which was hardly any money in those days. If you look at pounds, I think it was probably about 40 pounds.
Well, that's an interesting question, because I know most kit car, in my case, the kit car company that sold me mine could offer it as a self build, or they could buy it as a roller, or you could they would build it for you. Do you know how many of these were offered as a roller, or did they offer to just do them as kits?
Most of them were kit form, but I know there were some people that took them as rollers and and built them themselves.
Yeah.
But most of them were rollers that went full rolling chassis that went out the shop.
Well, that's where I was going with this, because if there was 140 odd, did you say that were manufactured?
630.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact that you've got 40 of them in your community is a testament to the fact that they have some staying power, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who will buy a kit car and never finish it, and just it'll gather weeds and it'll be taken off to the crusher.
Yeah, this takes a lot of, I must say, it takes a lot of persistence to finish cars. And of course, the costs, you never recover the costs at the end of the day, but it's the achievement and the joy you get out of doing it. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of these were, as I say, he built, he built them, and they went out as units.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a few stories. You'll see there's an invoice that I got, which is one of Bruce Alexander's invoice. And you can see he fitted the Mazda rotary. He bought an old RX2 rotary.
Yeah.
The whole car, and then all those components went into his car, which is, I don't have a photo of it, but it's till today, that's 100% original Marauder.
Wow.
And he's used it extensively. He's over 80 now, and he still rides around in it. And he's done a few hill climbs. He's been a few track days.
Wow.
So
that's great.
A very committed Marauder man.
Yeah.
So we always look up at him. Then there's in George, there's a family, the Bosman family.
Right.
And they started, and of course they bought up a few of the cars, and of course you can see they've got a whole collection. I think they've got more than 4 cars now, or 5 cars. And at one stage, I don't know if they did it, but there was somebody built a whole new chassis. A chassis, and then they had the molds for the body as well. So the body was molded. The molds are still in existence.
Wow.
And obviously, so they've built one of the cars off, and I think it's that dark blue one where that guy's standing with his back, with the short pants facing us.
Yep.
I think that's one that they've actually built from the ground up.
So that is a new vehicle. It's not it's a reproduction. It's not a historic vehicle.
Yeah. It's not really.
Great.
And then the yellow one, I think the yellow one is Jan's car in the back there.
Yeah. And
I think this is one of the Bosman brothers' cars. So you can see there's quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right, that little inset on the right, there's some photos of Terrence's cars that he's got stored. He's got that the Mark 1 on the bottom. And then on top, he's got I don't know if that's a Mark 1 or a Mark 2 or Mark 3.
Mm-hmm.
Actually looks like a Mark 3 up on the top there. But he's also got a whole collection.
You would know. I don't. I'm just a student, and I'm in awe of the culture and keeping it alive. Just like it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, the Bosman brothers. You can just go back to the previous slide. Jim.
Yeah.
They've really, in terms of George, they've really promoted it, and they're very active. There's a blue one that looks almost painted in the Golf oil racing colors.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen some video of it. I've actually had an online chat with them about it. So yeah.
They've got some good cars. So that's not true. If you look on the lift, there's a white one with the body as well. That's a reproduction.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, is it a reproduction as well? That's cool.
Yeah. The problem in South Africa these days is that they've clamped down in terms of, as you say, the roadworthy of the car. So, if you build it yourself, you won't be able to get it registered, and licensed in South Africa. It's got to be built by a professional company and all the design details provided. And I think that's killed a lot of the sport. So what a lot of people do, they buy up old cars just so they can get the registration papers and the details.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a South African chap that I know who lives in Delta, BC, who is currently building a HMV a sports car, and he's using a Triumph Spitfire chassis so that he can work his way through the registration process. Because if you tried to build a space frame for it, there's not a chance.
No chance. Yeah. No, and even when I did mine, I had to go to the provincial authorities, and they had whole team that actually assessed the car for the structural integrity and things when I roadworthy mine.
They sent you up to Pretoria.
That's right, yeah. To then the head of the traffic department to go and assess my car.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that was quite good for it to come back. But,
Yeah,
you know, they
that's
just
that's not a short trip, for crying out loud.
No, and no, I've used my car quite a bit. The problem that I've had is that I've been always working, you know, I work on the mine, so I've always been at remote locations.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't been able to join in with a lot of these guys. But more recently, since I've been in Cape Town,
Mm-hmm.
I've joined up with the Lotus group here with Craig and Nigel Bates and the gang.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're very frequent runs, and they do lots of out of the passes, you know, going through some passes, and they do some long drives as well.
Yeah.
And the problem with my car was that because I'd modified the engine so much, you know, 13:1 compression ratio.
Yes.
It could only run on avgas or racing fuel.
Yeah.
So long distance traveling for me was out because, you know, you have to make sure you've got a fuel supply to get there and back.
Yeah.
And so just recently now, I've actually I'm trying to detune the engine slightly, put a shim in to lower the compression ratio. I don't know how successful it will be.
Oh, so you haven't taken it out for a long run yet?
No, I'm not busy now at the moment, just doing, and I also fitted a 5-speed gearbox to it now as well.
Yeah.
It's a T9.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Because at the track days at Kalani, what you find with the 4-speed gearbox and the diff ratio is that when you come into the back straight, you know, you're already there and you full taps already, and you know, you're just revving the guts out the engine. So it needed a bit more, a different ratio.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Track days hurt the cars a lot. Then moving on is you're reading in the documentation. There was one partner that joined Peter Meffin in the early days, a guy called Derek Nightingale, and the two of them ran this the Marauder setup. And just recently, this was actually early, I'd say 1990s.
Yeah.
Late 90s.
So this is a revival.
Where he tried to develop, you know, and obviously went to modern. So they've gone to the Golf or the Golf engine, you know, the mid-engine, supposedly mid-engine thing. But you can see the framework, and there's still lots of, and he used the Volkswagen parts.
Yeah.
Jetta or Golf parts. And of course, he's obviously used that to develop this, you know, they call it the new Marauder, which he called
Maverick.
You know, obviously a Maverick. And he had a few, you can see on the right hand, but it never really took off, you know. So it was quite sad that sort of where it ended. But
yeah, it's interesting. It probably was just a little bit ahead of its time when you think about it, because there are a whole host of them that share that same ethos now that are doing quite well. Yeah,
and of course, I think the whole, you know, the kit car concept, you know, these little cars have taken off again. You know, at one stage it was pretty quiet. And there's quite a demand for them, you know. There's a lot, you know, if you look at Craig's, you know, the cars he's building.
Yep.
You know, the Hoppers, you know, they're all very popular. There's quite a few of them running around. And so, you know, these are a big market for them. Cobras are very popular here as well. But, you know, I'm not one great fan for Cobra. I love the V8, but I think that's just, I don't know how well they handle and what they do unless you really buy a professionally built one.
Yeah. Well, they have that reputation of being, what do they call it? The widow maker.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, kit cars, when you go fast, you know, you got to make sure that everything's solid. That's why one thing when I rebuilt my car when I bought it, I took it right down to pieces, and I made sure that everything was new, and, you know, the proper bolts were, you know, high tensile bolts were installed, and you know, because I knew if you're going to go fast, you want to make sure that you can, you know, that you can rely on what you've got in the car.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of crack detection testing in it, so just made sure it was safe and sound.
Now you're making me think, because I built mine in 2004. So time for a strip down and rebuild, maybe.
Yeah, if you're not, you know, I think these days, you know, with the traffic legislation, that you can't go fast unless you go to the track.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get caught in the speed trap or end up, and of course, because these cars are like, you're marked, you know, if you ride around. So you've got to behave yourself, or else they watch you, and you know, you're going to get caught. So most of the people end up at track days and you know, carry on.
Yeah.
The only problem is that as you get a bit older, I don't know if you found the same, it starts getting a bit more difficult to get in and out of them.
That gravity takes its toll.
Yeah, now you need a very low bottom steering wheel. One of these little flat bottom steering wheels, or one of these that can
Oh,
detach
yeah,
to get in and out.
mine is detachable, so that
That's good.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and as I said Jan van der Westhuizen, and him and the Tians, they've been really the driving force behind the resurrection of the Marauders, and I mean they went so far as in 2023 was the 50-year celebration
mhm.
of the Marauders, and they had a big trip down to the George Motor Show,
Uh-huh.
which was an adventure in itself, because another one had a blown head gasket, another one had a problem, they had a trailer, and they had two cars. It was quite an exercise. So one time Jan and Tiens could tell you about that, because that was the Mark IV, I think, the one that we spoke, that had a bit of issues with its engine. But so with it, they made stickers, they made clothes for the 50 years. So it's alive and well, and I say kudos to Jan and Tiens for their input and the hard work that they do in
Oh,
keeping this thing
absolutely.
going.
Yeah, talk about a passion. They
Yeah.
really got the passion for keeping the story alive, and
Yeah.
that's what I love.
Yep.
Now let's talk about your car.
Okay. Yeah.
So you sent me a whole bunch of pictures, and I'm going to fall on my sword and say I've categorized them as I thought that they were to be in order, and it turns out that half of the pictures are not even your car.
Yeah, but it's fine. It was this particular car, I can tell my brother bought it.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, he's got like 4 thumbs and 1 finger, so he's not really mechanically minded.
Uh-huh.
And when he got it, there were a lot of issues with the car. So I said, right, so we stripped it right down again, similar to what I did to mine.
Yeah.
And we also did a nut and bolt restoration of this one.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. And, is this the same? Is it a Mark II, this one as well?
Yeah, this is Mark II.
Yeah.
And of course, this has got the Pinto engine. So on the Pinto, we gas flowed the head. We put some side rolls and a 270-degree cam in this one with a nice branch. And this car really went nicely. It had lots of torque. It was a pleasure to drive over this car.
And did it come with a bog standard crossbow originally?
No, it came with a Pinto.
Yeah.
But in poor shape, I had to do quite a bit of work on that car.
Yeah.
And the interesting story with that car is that it was in pieces in my garage, and I was transferred from the one mine to a mine further away.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 3 weeks to finish the car, and I worked, so I'd do long day at work and then come home and work till 3 o'clock in the morning putting this car together.
And then off to work you go again.
The removal truck was coming on the Monday, and I drove it to him on the Sunday night.
And if I'm reading the history correctly, this is now, is this just before or just after you moved to Vancouver with these photographs?
This was just before, yeah. Just before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first photo there, that's my little car at Killarney track day.
Mm-hmm.
We go out, and I know Craig joins quite often, and it's good fun.
Yeah.
But I actually feel sorry for my car. As I said, the ratios weren't right, so you don't want to go and blow the engine up unnecessarily on these things. So and it's fairly quick, as I say, with the compression ratio, and that one's at this is the engine I actually built up. I actually picked the brains of 3 of the best, or 4 of the 4 best tuners in South Africa.
Yeah.
And the one said, "Oh, well, if you do these valves, you got to do double valve springs for that. Then you got to have a double row timing chain,
mm-hmm.
and then you got to, you can drop the block or deck the block by 4 millimeters, which is quite." And I took the small dish pistons and decked them down. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of work done on this car, and it was, as I said, it was mean. It really was a rapid little car. The only thing I couldn't change the gears quick enough with it. And the 0 to 100 k's an hour time was short, but it could give motorbikes and had a good drag.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the track day. And then if you go back to the slide, I just want to go back to that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just some of the detail. What I did when I built it, I had a lot of parts, re-inspected and re-chromed, and we put a lot of stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to really keep it quite smart, but keep it original.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right-hand photo, that's one of the Lotus runs, the group runs we do with the Lotus group, and that was Chapman's Peak.
Yes.
Early in the morning, going up there.
Yeah. The driving in South Africa looks like it's absolutely driving paradise.
Yeah, it is, especially the Chapman's Peak and the Franschhoek Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't go fast, but the guys do find all places just to give the car a little bit of air, and let it run nicely. And then normally there's a good turnout, of people that do these runs on the Sunday. So excellent.
Cool.
So that was it, yeah. And then this is just photos so that I actually had a little hood cover made for it, for the rain in it. But by the time you put the hood on, you'd be sopping wet in any case. So it's there, but it's not very practical.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And so it's always just one of those things that you must just go fast so the rain can blow over you and go past.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to have it. You don't need it until you need it.
Yeah. So there it goes with me. That's just some of the detail, washing it and looking at the detail of the car.
Yeah.
All Ford. You can see the struts and the ends. That's all Ford stuff, old ex-Cortina stuff.
Yeah.
Calipers. So and you can see the suspension on that was the bit of the bushing top, instead of the rose joints. You look at that.
Yes, I was just squeezing my face up to the computer to look at the bushing joints. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, and they're quite stiff. It actually gives a very nice ride. These cars really got a nice ride. Now, although I don't have low profile tires on, I still got the original 175 70s. So they're still quite big profile tires. And the mags are still the old British 100 plus mags.
Yep.
Which are sort of era specific for the 70s. They were 70 type mags.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So this is just another view. This is just taken outside the home. You can see that the Marauder had that typical dash where all the instruments on the left-hand side, which I thought was quite great because you don't have things in front of you.
Yeah, and that's great because it's angled towards you. You can see what's going on. It's great.
Yeah. And there you can see the filler cap. You'll see the later Mark, the Mark 3s have got the filler cap on the boot.
Yeah.
Which is a bit smaller, and then this has got the filler cap at the back.
Yeah.
Escort, the old Escort taillights. So.
Can I ask you how tall you are?
I'm 1.7.
Okay. And are your seats adjustable?
They're limited, yeah, but my son is a lot taller than I am, and he manages to squeeze in. I don't know how comfortable it is, but he does squeeze it and manages to drive it. So.
Yeah, that's always a situation with these cars. I've got a South African friend who's 6'4" tall.
Oh yeah, no,
there's just no way he's going to fit in my car.
No, that's for sure. No,
and what is the wheelbase of this? To me, when I look at the pictures of the car, it looks to be a little bit of a shorter wheelbase.
Yeah, it is short. I can't give the exact figure, but I know it is fairly short.
Yeah.
And
this is after you did your restoration and.
Yeah. Taken out for the first little ride. Yeah. Shakedown. Taken out for a shakedown. So I still got a few little issues to sort out.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with these cars too is that you've got to wear these super duper little shoes, these racing driver boots, because the pedals are so close to each other. You find you're pushing the brake and the accelerator and the clutch at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it's similar in the Lotus as well.
Yeah, it's in my low cost Demon Motorsport, it's the same thing. Yeah, and I've got wide feet, so it's an issue.
So you got to squeeze four toes into that.
Yeah, be careful. Just have to be careful.
No, it's really a fun car, and that's the Kent Crossflow engine that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all. Actually, look carefully, you'll still see it's even got the old voltage regulator that I left behind when I put an alternator on, but I left the voltage regulator. You can't see it on the bulkhead. Just to remind people of those old days when we still had dynamos and the voltage regulators and things like that, generators as we used to call them.
Yeah.
And this is Chapman's Peak, and as you can see, there's a Harper in front of this one.
Yeah, and then
with another Lotus.
A Lotus, and then I don't recognize the one.
It's a GT40.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Lawrence Toys GT40.
Yeah.
That the Lotus in front of that Harper is also quite interesting. It's actually called a Taurus.
A Taurus.
Yeah, which is a locally built one. There are a few of them built. They're a bit wider and slightly different nose cone, and I think it's a Taurus or something. It's a different. It's not actually Paca Lotus, not a Birkin or not a Locust. It's locally built.
Do they still exist, or have they?
Yeah, there's a few of them. There's still a few of them around. Yeah.
Yeah.
They run, they join us. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe, who knows? You might be tasked to become a roving reporter.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was just all that goes. That's just a close up of the dash. Not a very good photo, but
Yeah.
And what happened? Peter Meffin had this type with VDO. So most of the original instrumentation is all VDO in the cars itself. And I put that little red light in because I initially had some oil surge issues with it. With the way these things corner, and that if you don't have proper baffles in the sump, or you haven't done it
So
properly.
I was going to ask what that is for. I know that some people put an indicator in for a rev change, and that's just your low oil. Yeah.
Yeah. When that's on, you've got problems.
Yeah. Shut it down now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing some work on some designs because you cure the one problem, then the next problem's there. But a good friend in the Lotus group, he's got a Birkin.
Yeah.
And he sent me some photos of the sump that he's got. It's got little trap doors in it and all very fancy.
Yeah.
A really fancy sump.
Yeah.
So I'm striving to build something like that at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people will put in many different baffles, and then they'll extend the sump out to the side.
Yeah.
And then there's, as you say, there's always the expensive route.
Yeah, it probably pays. I always try to do everything myself, but I think it's like these things are, they could be expensive things if you don't get it right. Engines are expensive, so probably pays you to go to there's a local guy, Lotus guy in South Africa called Clive Wilmot. I think you've heard of him.
His name again is which?
Clive Wilmot.
Oh, no, don't know that name.
He's like the big head of the Lotus register and all sorts of things in South Africa. He's like the kingpin and does a lot of building and mods and things.
Mm-hmm.
Very much a seven
probably
guru.
Scribbling away, making notes here. Gonna be looking into that. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, Clive Wilmot is you can see he's actually on the website. You'll find a lot of information on him for the Lotus register.
Okay.
He's very much involved with the racing as well. There's a very big Lotus 7 racing group in South Africa.
Yeah.
They got 3 classes. They got the modified with the fancy motors, and then they got the Rocam, the 1.3 Rocams at the back.
Yeah. No, and it's quite competitive, and it's quite a passion in itself. And I've chatted and interviewed some people. There's some people who are using Formula Ford technology, in fact, in their sevens. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is it's how much you're prepared to spend.
Yeah. That's always an issue, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's one thing about these cars, you'll never ever get the money back that you spent on it or the hours.
No.
I always say it's a satisfaction, and to me, it's always the thing of building it, and testing it and driving it, and getting some reward for knowing that you've done all that work.
Yeah, that's the way it is with engineering generally. I know my son is in the aircraft business, and he always tells me, "Dad, do you want to know how to make a small fortune in aircraft business?" And I said, "How?" And he said, "Start with a large one."
Yeah, that's like they said. Yeah, so this is a photo of my brother's car.
Yeah,
that sold, and then the new owner put these Rostal rims on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, everything else was still the same.
Yeah.
And I know he used it a lot.
Now, I've got a question about the aerodynamics of that the front fin that they've added. I mean, does it make a noticeable difference in your opinion?
I don't think so. I know Jan and them can tell you they've redesigned, reprofiled that, and they've made much better wings now.
Yeah.
So, you could probably tell you the benefits of wings. I haven't got wings on mine.
Yeah.
I just find they're things that you trip over all the time. So this car especially was a pain because every time you walk, you fall over the wing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think
this
about
is
the
a
timing.
neat. This also.
I was just going to say the timing of this. I mean, there's a lot of guys with their 7s, and they'll add an airfoil at the rear end. And I'm wondering if that was part of the design concept back in the day.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. If you think when Colin Chapman built the cars, you know, we got some in the group here. There's some very quick Lotuses. There's one called the Lotus, which is a Opel engined turbocharged monster that does sort of 300 kilowatts, which is probably about 480, 500 horsepower.
Yeah.
A real monster. And what happens is, what they have found is that there's so much force that they start breaking the frame and things, you know, with and the braking becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So this one really turned out nicely. I think there is one slide of the engine, a view of the engine, which is really came out nicely, this car.
Yeah.
Probably next
and
one. Yeah.
There's your I don't know if that was whilst your brother still owned it or not, but that is
no. This is the new owner.
Yeah.
But if you look down to the yellow one, that's the Mark III, as you can see with the bonnet. That, you know, where his was the flip up bonnet.
Yes.
That's a fully removable bonnet with the frog eyes.
Yeah. That's the Mark III. It was the frog eyes. Yeah.
So that's and then this is just a review of you'll see that Mark IV down the bottom. That's there.
Yeah.
Towards the Cortina.
Yeah, very cool.
This is they have a cars in the park, which is in Pretoria, to the racetrack, the Swartkorp racetrack. Normally about August every year, and all the car makes and that come out and they show the car. So you can see this is like little more Marauder contingent that went out.
Yeah.
For the day.
It's interesting. I mean, the front of the vehicle has seen a variety of changes in the evolution as it's gone along with it. But as far as the way the rear of the car presents itself, other than the filler cap, it's pretty much the same story.
Yeah, the boot, and the trunk lid is a little bit different at the back. You know, whereas if you look at the Mark II, the trunk is quite big. In the Mark III, the trunk is a bit smaller because of the filler cap and that on the side.
Yeah, well, I'm jealous. I mean, because I have a replica 7, and of course, there's no room for anything in the boot. So,
these are good. You can at least get a cooler bag in it, and you know, or you can store your clothes in it, because you know what happens is always in the open, they just get people can help themselves. So this is when it's handy to have that little storage space in the trunk.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
I always used to come short in Canada, or they called it a boot. And they looked at me and said, "What the hell? Oh, the trunk. You mean the trunk?"
Yeah. And
so this was a little printer. I must say, this engine really came out nicely. We dressed it up quite nicely, and this ran nicely. This car. So Jan has now got this car. So you'll see what he'll do with it.
Okay, that's cool. So this one is not, or was it your brother's car?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, this is. Yeah. That's another view of it with obviously the new wheels that the new owner put on.
Yeah.
Even he used this car as a daily driver, you know, every in and out. So, you know, Jan knew him a lot better than my brother's still very hard saw that he had to actually sell this car, you know, but to get stuff into Australia, you know, it's got to be all the fluids drained out and it's got to be clean. And in terms of, you know, getting the roadworthy certificates and that, I think it would have been an issue. So he had to part with his car.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I know that just going from state to state, the rules are quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is interesting, that roll bar, you know, they got there, it's actually transformer tubes, cooling tubes for transformers. I think that was used there, that profile.
Oh, is that right? Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of them, you know, that have got them. Some of them now gone to pipes. You know, the later ones have gone to sort of tubing. And so that was some nice views on this little car.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice look. It looks nice.
Yep.
And that brings us kind of full circle.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, what can I say? It would have been nice to have Ravel join us. and
Yeah.
but who knows? Maybe we can drag them together in another one, because there's a lot of meat on the bone with regard to the history of it. And I know that
and Revel lived that whole life, with his dad, so he could really give you all the ins and outs.
Yeah, and his car is immaculate. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it took a long time to initially the chassis was redone, and he was putting up photos and really making us envious of the quality of the work that he's doing.
Yeah.
And then we did the body, he did a superb job. So
yeah. I mean, you and I have said this before. I mean, he's Peter's son, so it would make sense that he could just add some bits of history and just some anecdotes of the history that are just precious.
And it was interesting because at the get-togethers, and I didn't do many, but when Peter was there, he knew every car. So you would say this one's had an accident, this one had a big accident before, and this one is fine, and this one is. He knew all the cars really. So
yeah,
it was interesting. And of course, the racing, there was some very interesting interludes to the motor racing world that they had with the Marauder.
Yeah,
which was, they entered the car, but because it had open sides, and the mudguards were open, they had to go into extensive body modifications to enter the 9-hour race. So that's how it got a door, because it got some doors and it got like a fancy nose cone in the front.
That's right. Yeah, there was something mentioned about Peter wanted to get into a race and was pleading with the officials, please let us race. And they had changed the rules or dictated that they had to have a door on it, and they're just like, come on.
And closed and no open mudguards and things. So
yeah, that's racing for you, though. I mean,
and that one's actually, I've got some photos of that. I must actually send some to you.
Yeah, I'd love that. I just love it.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say, Charles? This has just been excellent, and I, from us at 7 Spot, I'm going to say thank you, because this is going into our magazine, and it's I'm going to be furiously editing it because it'll be coming out on the 15th, and I'll just say thanks an awful lot. So I'm looking forward to doing the editing, and hopefully we can catch up on some with Jan and Rebel. That would be just awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going to hit the end button, but please stay online and until everything gets uploaded. All right.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Thanks, Job. Thank you, and thanks everybody.
All right. Bye now.